Hey, we're live.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt, and I am chairing today's session. Joining me on the panel is Linda McFadden, who is in the committee room, and Richard Whitbread via Zoom. Our secretary today is Louise Boilly, and our assessor representing the City of Winnipeg Assessment and Taxation Department is Matthew Shields. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 2, 4, and 5 and 6 on our docket today. Ms. Boilly, please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please stand. Please state your full name.
Matthew Shields.
Do you affirm that the evidence about at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Applicant, please stand. Please state your full name.
Ryan Oliveros.
Do you affirm that the evidence about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome Mr. Shields and Mr. Oliveros. Let's just take a second to pull up your briefs. And we are starting with file number 221331-287 Portage Avenue. Mr. Shields, when you're ready, you may begin with your presentation, please.
Thank you very much. So the file number is 22-1331, roll number 13052198100. Address is 287 Portage Avenue. For the roll year of 2023, reference date of April 1st, 2021. With an assessed value of $2,382,000, with a gross leasable area of 15,412. We have a recommendation to reduce the assessment to $1,922,000.
All right, can you explain the basis of that recommendation, please?
Yes, so the reduction in the assessment is based on changing the rental rate applied to the premise number 19941 to $14 a square foot.
Okay, let me just. Okay, and that's the premise that has 10,012 square feet.
That's correct.
Okay, and there were no other changes to your model other than that one?
No other changes.
Okay, Mr. Oliveros, we have a verbal recommendation of $1,922,000. What do you say to that?
We definitely respect the recommendation that the assessors made today. However, just based on our evidence here, we respectfully deny the recommendation today.
Okay, so thank you. Mr. Shields, you may then begin with your evidence.
Sure. So on page 2, you can see starting there is the subject properties lease, which was signed in 2008, which is followed by pictures of the location. And then on page 4, there are some comparable rents for other Dollarama locations in the city, which have an average lease net rent per square foot of $16.59 per square foot. And then on page 5, there is the income workup, which the only change as stated in the recommendation would be to the premise 19941, changing the rental rate from $17.78 to $14 a square foot. The rest of the parameters in this income workup would stay the same. And then starting on page 9, you can see the income and expense information that was submitted by the property owners. And that is my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Mr. Oliveros, do you have questions?
I do. Thank you, Ms. Nesbitt. Mr. Shields, so if we flip over to page 5 of your evidence here, so you had adjusted the rental rate for the premise setting 19941 down to $14 a square foot. Was that a model driven rate that was applied for that, or was it more like, is it site specific?
Yeah, it was based on the comparables.
It was based on the comparables? Yeah. Okay.
So on, I guess, page 4 on the comparables, I found that the overall rental rate that was applied to Dollaramas in the city of similar size and was $16.59 per square foot. However, based on the condition of this location, we found that it was more similar to the St. Anne's location, which has a $14 per square foot rent.
Okay. So if we compare that, do you happen to know what the land to building ratio is for that St. Anne's location?
That I do not.
Okay. Does it have its own parking?
At the St. Anne's location?
Yes.
I believe it does.
It does, okay. The land to building ratio of the subject property here, it's 1.44. Would you say that's low?
Yeah.
Okay, would you agree then that the St. Anne's location here, possibly would, I mean, given that it's not really in the downtown, I understand that these locations out in more of, I guess, the suburban locations, they have a higher amount of parking, is that correct?
They do, yes.
Speculating that, but
Yes.
would that lead to a higher lease rate with outside parking?
It could, but it's not a guarantee.
Okay. So the lease rate, the revised lease rate that you had applied, your remaining comparables on Henderson Highway, Plessis Road, and Kennison Boulevard, really wouldn't be influenced by those three comparables?
Not as much because the Plessis and Keniston are newer locations, but they do show the higher rental rate.
Okay. And if we flip to page 10 of your evidence here, this is the owner's rent roll as of 2020, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and the lease rate per square foot for that main floor space, that works out to $12 a square foot, right?
yep.
Wouldn't you say that that's more of a fair rent to apply to the subject in this case then, given the site-specific basis?
I mean, it's got less weight than our comparables because this lease was signed in 2008
Okay.
versus the comparables I used. I think the longest ago one of those that was started was in March of 2017. So about 9 years later.
Did you have a chance to review the previous rent rolls prior to 2020?
I did not.
Okay. There just seemed to be some indication to our office at least that that this lease might have actually been renewed in 2018.
Okay. What we have on file is just what's presented here is what they put on the INEs.
Okay, no, fair enough. And just my last question here on page 11, we see here that the owner stated that that COVID had a significant impact on this property. You agree with that?
They indicated on significant impact, but they did not appear to elaborate on any of that information other than checking the boxes.
Okay. Would you agree that the COVID-19 pandemic here, it had an adverse effect on retail properties throughout Winnipeg, especially those with storefronts along downtown?
In a general sense, yes, that could be a conclusion that could be drawn.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Oliveros. Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Yes, Mr. Shields, do you have the revised NOI and rent figures in front of you?
Based on the $14 a square foot?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the net operating income would then be $144,179.
And you just mind reading the rent to us?
Yeah, the rent would be $14 a square foot for premise 19941, and then it would be $4.64 for premise 30612.
Did you recalculate the total potential rent?
The total potential rent?
Yeah.
Yes, that's at 165,224.
Thank you very much. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. McFadden, do you have any questions?
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Okay, I do also have questions on the lease. Mr. Shields, you indicate that this was in your record show, a 2008 lease start. It's a 15-year lease.
Yes.
Are you aware? Are there any step-ups?
I am not aware of that.
Okay. Despite the presence of the lease, which shows $12, then you're using 14. Are you suggesting that $12 is not reflective of a market rent for this property?
That is, yeah, that's based on the comparables that I found that there doesn't seem to be any other locations similar to this occupied by Dollarama that appear to be renting for that low.
Did you look at any other retail type places along Portage Avenue in the area?
I did, but it's hard to find something that's a comparable size of 10,000 square feet downtown.
Okay, so you did, but you chose not to present them. They weren't, in your view, relevant, or?
Correct.
Okay, and does Dollarama negotiate its leases? Like, is it a franchise where everybody leases or negotiates a lease differently, or how does the negotiations work? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Okay. I'm just wondering, when I am looking at one on Plessis Road, it's hard to compare that to a downtown location with minimal, if any, parking. And so I'm just trying to find some sort of comparability. I'm having a little bit of trouble, I have to admit. Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Oliveros.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Nesbitt. Okay, so the subject property is located at 287 Portage Avenue. The roll number is 13-0521 98100. File number is 22-1331. We're asking the board to reduce the 2023 realty assessment from $2,382,000 to $1,640,000. If we go on to page 6 of my evidence here, you'll see the storefront of Dollarama here, as well as in an aerial map marked by the red location marker. And we can see here that there is limited parking on site. But I do recognize that there's also street parking for the subject. So, okay, so the subject property, if we go on to page 7 of my evidence here, it's located in downtown Winnipeg with Smith Street to the east and Donald Street to the west. It's improved with a one-story masonry steel building. I did inspect this property just yesterday, just decided to take a walk through it. And Dollarama's, no matter which one you go to, they do have basic finishing in them. This property was built in 1992 with a wall height of 13 feet. The plan area measures 10,230 square feet, and the basement area is 5,400 square feet. And we have on our records here that the storage area, that the basement area is used as storage, and the current tenancy for the property is, of course, retail. The land area for the subject is 14,740 square feet with a low land to building ratio of 1.44 to 1. And the site is zoned M for multiple use. Now, if we go on to page 11 of my evidence, getting into our analysis here. So we have on record, after reviewing the our clients' income and expense statements here on the rent rolls, we actually have that their lease renewed in 2018 at $12 per square foot. What I've also provided to you today is the lease, the base rent that was received. However, we also understand that, and this is shown in our appendix here, that there's also a percentage rent clause attached to the lease of the subject property. So we've provided the percentage rents that have been received by the owner from 2012 all the way up until 2020. So we can see here that looking at the total rent that was received on a per square foot basis, that yes, we do recognize that the rent was increasing from 2012 all the way up until 2015, but we can see clearly here that the total rent received per square foot started declining in 2016. Notwithstanding the effects of COVID, which we see here that they received no percentage rent in 2020. So we can see, based on this table that I have, that COVID-19 clearly had an impact on retail properties, which gave investors sort of a negative outlook. And that's also evidenced in our cap rate study here that I've provided now. I know we've heard the cap rate study a few times here. And Mr. Shields, if you would like me to go through a retail capitalization rate study, I can quickly.
No, it's okay. I think we're all familiar
Okay.
with it.
Sounds good. Yeah. But I do want to draw the board's attention here to page 10 of our evidence, or of our cap rate evidence, and I can just read this out, that we know that retail properties with storefronts along the downtown area did struggle during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then if we relate that back to the subject property, we can see that that is in fact true here, that COVID did have that adverse effect. Also on page 17 of our cap rate evidence, we know that the market rents for most of the retail, for most retail properties were expected to decline in 2021. And that is shown on point 1 on page 17, and as well as point 2 here, where again, we're just stating that rents overall were expected to at least stay stable or decline during this time. What I've also provided here are comparable rents for the subject, and I'm going back to my brief on page 11. We can see that the effective ages of my comparable rents, they range from 1965 to 2002. We have a mix of single tenant and multi-tenant properties with leasable areas ranging from 7,900 square feet to 25,030 square feet. These leases were negotiated before the or within the reference period or before that. I understand that here that index number 1 is an older lease. However, the best comparable that I have for you here today would be index number 3. That is actually the giant tiger at the corner of Donald Street and Donald Street and Ellis, I believe. And I provided a photo of the subject on, or sorry, I provided photos of the lease comparables on pages 17 to 20 of my brief. And okay, so for the lease rates, they range from $7.75 a square foot to $11 per square foot. And the land to building ratios range from 1.01 to 4.75. For the best comparable that I mentioned here on Donald Street, the rent that they're receiving here is only $8.70 a square foot. I don't think you're gonna get any more of a better comparison than this property on Donald here, given the fact that it's in downtown. It's comparable to the subject property in the sense that these giant tigers, they also have basic finish, just like Dollarama's would. So, given our analysis of the lease comparables, and also the actual rents received by the subject property, what we've done here is applied a rental rate of $12.50 a square foot to the main floor area. And for the basement area, we've applied a rental rate of $4.25 a square foot. In reviewing the assessor's evidence, though, I'd be fine with a basement rent here of $4.64 a square foot. It wouldn't have such a large impact on our valuation. For the vacancy allowance, we've applied a rate of 6%, so we agree with the city on that end. For the shortfall rate, we've applied $7 per square foot. For the non-recovered expenses, we're continuing to apply a 7% allowance. That's 2% for structural reserve and 5% for the non-recoverable expense allowance itself. For the cap rate, we don't disagree with the city here. We are also applying a 7.5% cap rate. And that leads us to our final value, which is summarized on page 14 of my evidence of $1,640,000. The balance of my evidence here are the income and expense statements from 2012 up until 2020. as well as the assessment information. So again, I do request that the board reduce the assessed value for the subject from $2,382,000 to $1,640,000. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oliveros. Mr. Shields, do you have any questions for Mr. Oliveros?
Just one, regarding the comparables used in your brief there. Most of those, if not all of them, they're listed on there as supermarkets.
Yes.
Historically, do supermarkets get a lower rental rate than a storefront property? Just a per square foot basis?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, that they would get a lower lease rate. Typically landlords would want to lease grocery stores or supermarkets on a long term because of the longevity that they can offer, which is why though that I've applied a higher lease rate, much higher than even my best comparable here, which is at $8.70 a square foot.
Great, that's my only question.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions for Mr. Oliveros?
I have none, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. McFadden?
I have none either. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Oliveros, you indicated that you could go to the assessor rate of $464. So you're only 40 cents apart really on that
Only
one, right?
40 cents apart. Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
It doesn't have a large impact on our valuation, so I'd be okay with the rate.
yeah. About $2,000, I think,
Mhm.
to the gross rent anyway. I don't know how it plays out through the math, but okay. And you indicated you had no argument over cap. Okay. All right.
No argument over cap rate, no.
It's all about the rental rate and the expense rate in this case.
That
Okay.
is correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I have no additional questions, so thank you very much, Mr. Shields and Mr. Oliveros, for your presentations. We will go to item number 4 on our agenda. Before we get there, let's just give us the chance to open up the files. Okay, item number 4 on our agenda is file number 22-1395, 2145 Portage Avenue, Unit 1. Before we begin, I understand that there's a preliminary issue, Mr. Shields, for burden of proof.
Yeah, we would like to formally withdraw the request for the non-cooperation.
Okay. Mr. Whitbread or Ms. McFadden, do either of you have any questions or comments about that?
I have
No.
none.
Okay. Okay, then, Mr. Shields, you can introduce this property and just then speak to value.
Okay, so this is file number 22-1395. Roll number 0705010900. Address is 1-2145 Portage Avenue for the roll year of 2023 with a reference date of April 1st, 2021 with an assessed value of $1,817,000. The property has a leasable area of 13,777 square feet. We have a recommendation to reduce the assessment to $1,716,000.
Sorry, can you repeat that? 1716?
1716, yes.
Okay. And can you explain the basis for your recommendation, please?
Yeah, so this is changing the rate per square foot on premises 6534, 24608 and 280297 all of which would be reduced to $17.50 per square foot. And all other parameters as far as the income summary would be staying the same.
Okay, so what is your new potential rent then for this property?
The new potential rent for this property would be $153,117.
Okay, and your new NOI?
Would be $133,826.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oliveros, we have a verbal recommendation from the assessor to reduce the assessment from $1,817,000 down to $1,716,000. And that is based on a reduced rental rate for a few of the premises. What do you say to that recommendation?
Yes, we accept the recommendation. However, we just want to state for the record that we are accepting the value, not necessarily the methodology as to which the value was arrived at.
Okay, that's good on record. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions or comments on the rec?
I don't, thank you.
Ms. McFadden?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right. We will now move to item number 5 on our agenda, file number 221754, 2169 Portage Avenue. Mr. Shields, when you're ready with your presentation, please.
Thank you. So it is file number 22-1754, roll number 0705008800, address 2169 Portage Avenue for the year 2023, reference date April 1st, 2021, with an assessed value of $1,325,000. This property has a leasable area of 6,204 square feet. And we have a recommendation to reduce the assessment to $1,196,000.
$1,196,000, right?
That's
right.
correct.
Can you explain the basis for your recommendation, please?
Yes, so we reduced the rental rate on premise 28720 to $18 a square foot. And then we also changed the cap rate from 7.2% to 7.9%.
Okay, so let me just give that back to you so I have it right. A verbal recommendation to reduce to $1,196,000, and that was based on a reduced rental rate on one premise to, and I'm sorry, what was the number?
$18.
And you increased the cap rate to 7.9%.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Mr. Oliveros, what do you say to that recommendation?
We accept the recommendation, but again, not the methodology as to which the value was arrived at.
Thank you very much. Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions or comments on the recommendation?
I don't, thank you.
Ms. McFadden?
I do not, thank you.
And sorry, I just need this for the record. What was the new potential rent and the new NOI?
Yeah, so the potential rent would be $106,518 with a net operating income of $94,517.
So new potential rent is $106,518 and new NOI is 94,517.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Just give me a minute to get to the next presentations, please. For some reason, my system doesn't allow me to pull the two of them up at the same time. I don't understand this, but
Mine
that's,
doesn't either. Lynn.
yeah, it's frustrating.
Mhm.
Have to go in and out, in and out. Okay, so we are now dealing with the last item on our agenda today, item number 6, file number 22-1755. And our property is 2179 Portage Avenue. So Mr. Shields, when you're ready, your presentation, please.
So this is file number 22-1755, roll number 0705009100, address 2179 Portage Avenue. For the roll year of 2023, reference date April 1st, 2021, with an assessed value of $397,000. It has a leasable area of 3,117. As I'd kind of like to jump ahead here just to clarify on page 5. We have our income workup, and you can see the value is quite different on that page than what was sent out. So that was due to change that was done to the property based on permits that were taken out after the original value was already sent out. Now, we have a recommendation to just maintain the assessment at the 397,000. Because we feel that the value that it jumped up was too high based on the changes that were made after this was sent out.
Okay. I understand that then. So this workup on page 5
Yeah.
is not relevant now, correct?
This is still accurate to what we will have going forward. It's just the value itself is
Right.
not what we're, yeah,
That's not the value under appeal or the workup
Correct.
that we're looking at, correct?
correct.
So you'll have to then give us some of the details on that $397,000 value that you've come to. Because that's the value under appeal, correct?
That is the value under appeal, yes.
Right. So at this point, we know nothing about it.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, so I will say I had some trouble in our system just getting it to give me back the exact figures before this, because as I said, I'm looking at what was done as of today in the system and not what was sent out.
Okay, can I just ask, has there been a supplementary?
No, there was not going to be a supplementary sent out on the property, no.
Okay, go ahead then.
Yeah, so as you can see on that income workup that is in my, here on page 5. It previously was one premise, or it was, you can see here, there's 2 premises here. One was previously listed as a basement. And the other was, again, this same, but I guess the work that was done, it was previously about 2,900 and change square feet. I don't have the exact figure, but it was about 2,900 square feet. And it encompassed both the first and second floor. And the change that was made was to split those into 2 distinct premises.
Okay, what was the, no, I shouldn't be asking the questions. So you should be telling us what the rental rate and things like that are, right?
Yeah, I don't have what the specific rental rate was previously to these changes.
Okay. So, okay. All right then. Mr. Oliveros, do you have any questions?
Just give me 1 second. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure, yeah, for sure.
May I ask a question while we're waiting, Madam Chair? You want us to
Probably
be in
Mr.
order?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
in order. Yeah,
Sure.
thanks.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Go ahead, Mr. Oliveros.
So I guess just so I'm clear here, the rent comparables that are stated on page 4 of your evidence, Mr. Shields, do those relate to the original value of 309, or of the value that you're requesting that the board confirm at 397,000?
Yes,
They do, okay. All right, so if we look at the comparable at 2080 Ness Avenue, that comparable was is the actual year built on that 2016?
I don't know if that's the actual year built. That one. But I do believe that property is much newer than the subject.
Okay. Do you happen to know what the land to building ratio is on that property?
On the subject or the comparable?
On the comparable,
I do not know what that number is.
is it a strip mall?
I do not know if it is a strip mall specifically. No, I don't know that.
3025 Ness Avenue, is that a strip mall?
I believe that one is a multi-tenant, yeah.
And do you happen to know what the land to building ratio is on that property?
No, I do not.
But you'll agree with me that it appears newer than the subject?
Yes,
2181 Portage Avenue, let's just state for the record here, do you have to know the land to building ratios of any of the?
no, I
comparables
don't
that
have
you've
the
provided?
building ratio of those properties, no.
All right, and you'll agree with me that the subject property has a low land to building ratio and limited parking?
Yes, for the subject property does, yes, have low parking dedicated to it specifically. However, there is street parking in front of the building.
Okay. Your comparable here at 2029 Portage Avenue, that is Santa Lucia Pizza as it's stated here.
Yeah,
Would you say that's one of the sort of major local type restaurants here in Winnipeg?
you could say that.
Okay. Would you say that these major local restaurants would pay higher lease rates for their properties that they lease out?
They could.
Okay. Okay, and those are all my questions then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oliveros. Mr. Whitbread, do you have questions?
Just to clarify, Mr. Shields, did I understand you to say you don't have the NOI or the cap rate to arrive at this new number, the 397?
No, I don't. I believe the cap rate is the same as that went out as.
But you don't have the rent with the NOI. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread. Ms. McFadden?
No, I don't have any further questions. I did calculate the NOI though.
You have it?
Yeah, I believe it's 28,385.
Assuming the cap rate didn't change, right?
Yeah.
Assuming there's no cap rate change.
Yeah. I just don't have the rates per square foot that were applied previous to the change yet.
So if it assists the board here, sorry to interject, I do have the city's original workup of the $397,000 on page 20 of my evidence.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank you.
Should have said that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Mr. Oliveros, though, we are on to your presentation.
Okay. All right, so the subject property is at 2179 Portage Avenue. The roll number is 07-05-0091-000, file number 22-1755. We're asking the board to reduce the assessed value for the subject from $397,000 to $363,000. If you go to page 6 of my evidence here, I provided an aerial photo of the subject property, and it is marked by the red location marker. You can see here that it's a long, narrow strip parcel with limited parking on it. Page 6, we have the storefront of the sorry, not storefront, we have the front of the subject property. I have photos of the rear of the subject property as well as side view here on page 7. And the assessor has let's see here, has described the property accurately. Sorry, I lost track of the evidence here. I think the difference that we have though is just with regards to the leasable area. It's a small amount here though. We're using a leasable area of 3,040 square feet. That is according to our client's rent roll. Whereas the city has 3,117 square feet. Okay. So if we just skip onto my analysis here. The only valuation factors in contention here are the rental rate per square foot, as well as the application of the non-recovered expenses. So looking at page 12 of my evidence here, the city's applied an overall rate, according to the original value of $397,000 of $10.70 a square foot. We are applying a rate of $10.25 a square foot, and that is based on my comparables here, also on page 12. So they range in age from effective ages of 1968 to 1982. These are multi-tenant properties, total leasable areas ranging from 997 square feet to 2,221 square feet. You can see here that they were all signed before the reference date. The rents range from $8.25 a square foot to $12.50 a square foot. Except for index number 3 here, we can see that they all have higher land to building ratios than the subject property, and with the land to building ratios ranging from 1 to 3.52. Going on to page 13, again, we don't contest the vacancy allowance here of 6%. We're applying the same shortfall rate of $7 per square foot. We're applying the 7% for non-recovered expenses, and we agree with the original cap rate here of 7.15%. And that brings us to our final value of $363,000. The balance of my evidence here is just the assessment information for your review, as well as the client's income and expense forms. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oliveros. Mr. Shields, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Thank you very much. Mr. Whitbread.
I have none, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McFadden.
And I have none, thank you.
Okay, and I have no questions either. So I believe we have now heard all the items on our agenda, and this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you very much, Mr. Shields and Mr. Oliveros, for your presentations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I calculated the NOI rate.